Welcome back to CBS Mornings here at 7:30, where we are learning new details in a CBS News investigation about a federal lawsuit accusing Twitter of complicity in a brutal campaign of repression by Saudi Arabia to silence its critics. A Saudi aid worker who used an anonymous Twitter account to mock Saudi Arabia was arrested in Riyadh back in 2018 and allegedly tortured. Now his American sister is speaking out in an exclusive interview with our chief investigative correspondent, Jim Axelrod, who joins us now. Jim, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. When Elon Musk took over Twitter last fall, he did so with financial backing from Saudi Arabia. The deal reaffirmed a close commercial relationship established years earlier between the social media company and the kingdom. A bond a woman named Arij Al-Sadan says led to the arrest and torture of her younger brother.
I want proof of life. I want to be able to see my brother and speak to him and make sure that he is okay.
Arij Al-Sadan, an American citizen, and her brother Abdul Rahman, a Saudi national, grew up splitting time between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia.
When was the last time you spoke to your brother?
More than 5 years ago.
That's because her brother sits in a Saudi prison cell, not allowed to communicate with his family.
His friends miss him. I miss him dearly.
After finishing college in California in 2013, Abdul Rahman returned to Riyadh and a job as a humanitarian aid worker.
You have a good sense of humor?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But it was that sense of humor that got him in trouble. His Twitter account, mocking Saudi officials and religious figures, grew to 160,000 followers.
Is Twitter important inside Saudi Arabia?
There is no freedom of speech, so Twitter became more like the forum for people to express themselves, mostly anonymously.
In its privacy policy, Twitter assured users it does not disclose private personal information except in limited circumstances. But in a new lawsuit, Arij accuses Twitter of improperly divulging Abdul Rahman's identity to the Saudis and becoming a tool of transnational repression.
How did you discover your brother was missing?
He used to call my mom every single day. She was the first to notice. The calls were not going through, the messages were not going through, and my mom was freaking out.
Co-workers eventually told the family Saudi officials arrested Abdul Rahman at his office, and they later learned he was being held and tortured.
They broke his hand, smashed his finger, saying, "This is the hand you tweet with." After 3 years, he was brought to a secret hearing.
Abdul Rahman Al-Sadan was charged with violating Saudi anti-terrorism laws.
He was prosecuted under counterterrorism laws.
Yes.
For tweeting.
Yes. They want people to be afraid to speak out, to say, look, if you dare to criticize us, this is what we're going to charge you with.
In 2021, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison, followed by a 20-year travel ban.
None of this would have happened but for Twitter's corruption.
That's a big word.
It is. But Twitter lit the fuse.
Attorney Jim Walden represents Arij Al-Sadan in her civil suit and points to a criminal case in California for what they claim is Twitter's complicity in disclosing Abdul Rahman's identity.
For the first time, federal authorities are accusing Saudi Arabia of spying in the U.S.
Last year, a former Twitter manager was convicted of acting as a foreign agent for KSA, or the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, one of 2 employees caught accepting bribes to pass along confidential user data.
And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia weaponized that information.
Evidence at trial suggested Abdul Rahman's personal information was leaked to the Saudis 3 years before his arrest. Twitter itself was never charged and has said it cut off access to the bad actors.
If there hadn't been any leak from inside Twitter, would Abdul Rahman's identity still be unknown to the KSA regime?
He would still be anonymous. He would still be free.
Walden alleges a conspiracy forged by the growing financial ties between the tech company and the kingdom, which first invested in Twitter in 2011.
Given the closeness of the relationship, given the amount of money that the Saudis were giving Twitter, it's impossible to conclude that Twitter had no idea this was happening.
Twitter declined our requests for comment, offering only this earthy emoji as an automated response. When Elon Musk bought the company last year, a Saudi fund maintained its investment. They now hold the second largest stake in Twitter, behind Musk.
What I'm worried about is that as a condition of their deal with Musk to stay as an owner, that they got special access.
Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy has asked the Biden administration to review whether the Musk deal jeopardized national security by giving the Saudi government access to more private user data, including for U.S. citizens. He says the administration refused.
I don't know why the administration didn't look into this, but for a long time we've looked the other way at Saudi Arabia's outrageous behavior, both domestically and in the region, because we wanted their oil.
We need to speak up for him.
Arij al-Sadan told us she can no longer stay quiet about her brother's case, despite receiving threats she says are the work of Saudi leadership.
One of them says, I'm going to rape you and I'm going to murder you. I mean, this is horrendous. This is crazy. And of course, when you remember what happened to journalist Jamal Khashoggi, you know how serious that is. These people are serious about their threats.
Saudi Arabia is also named as a defendant in Arij's lawsuit and declined to comment. In correspondence with human rights investigators at the United Nations, the kingdom maintained Abdulrahman violated anti-terrorism laws and denied his family's claims of torture. The UN investigators didn't buy it. In a September opinion, they determined Abdulrahman's arrest and detention were, quote, arbitrary and lacked a legal basis, and said no trial should have taken place.
Wow. So what's next now for the lawsuit?
Well, the suit has been filed. Twitter's been served. In fact, the deadline for Twitter to respond is today. They've asked for an extension. Saudi Arabia has not been served yet. We will, of course, keep you updated on
Very brave, I think, of the sister to speak out on her brother's behalf, knowing how you can be treated in Saudi Arabia. And it raises a question back to the Live Golf tournament. Why these kind of stories matter? Because many people are saying, how could we do business with a government that behaves that way? Based on the story that you just told. Yeah, and I hear there are many stories like that.
Yeah, and that's obviously what is spiking a lot of intense emotion about the arrangement yesterday that was announced between Liv and the PGA. I will say that there's several hurdles in that particular story, among them a DOJ investigation into whether it violates any sort of antitrust laws to have that monolithic golf entity. Also makes you realize both sides must have had something that was more preferable in merging than it was going to court. The PGA Tour certainly didn't want to get into a battle, a legal battle in terms of how much you have to pay. And the Saudis probably didn't want to enter into any kind of discovery.
Yeah, Jim, this is an eye-opening investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.